The Roots of Hula, an introduction to Hawaii's living tradition. When we hear the word hula, most people immediately picture swaying hips, floral garlands, and the gentle rhythm of island music. Yet behind the graceful movements and bright costumes lies a cultural tradition that is deeply sacred, carrying the history, spirituality, and identity of the Hawaiian people. Hula is not just dance. It is a living language, a form of storytelling, and a cultural anchor that has survived centuries of change. In this documentary journey, titled Hula Dance Documentary Exploring Hawaii's Cultural Heritage, we will immerse ourselves in the origins, meanings, transformations, and modern significance of hula. Across 12 chapters, we will uncover how hula connects people to nature, spirituality, community, and history. Let us begin at the very foundation, the roots of hula itself. The Hawaiian Islands, a cradle of culture. To understand hula, we must first step into the world from which it was born, the Hawaiian Islands. Formed by volcanic fire and surrounded by the vast Pacific Ocean, Hawaii is a land of natural contrasts, lush rainforests, towering cliffs, flowing lava, and endless blue waters. For the Hawaiian people, this land is not merely a backdrop. It is alive, filled with spirit, and every tree, stone, and breeze carries meaning. Hula grew out of this intimate relationship with the land and the elements. Hawaiians saw themselves as part of nature, not separate from it. Thus, when they danced hula, they were not simply performing. They were communicating with the world around them, honoring the gods, retelling myths, and celebrating life. Teater, origins of hula. Myth and legend. Hula's beginnings are woven with legend. According to Hawaiian tradition, there are several stories about how the dance came to be. One well-loved tale speaks of the goddess Hi'iaka, sister of the volcano goddess Pele, who performed the first hula to soothe her sister's fiery spirit. In another version, hula was a gift from the gods themselves, taught to humans as a way to preserve knowledge through movement. Each version of the story reflects something vital. Hula is divine in origin. It is more than entertainment. It is a sacred gift. When early Hawaiians danced, they invoked the presence of gods and ancestors, using their bodies as vessels for memory and spirit. Hula kahiko, the ancient form. The earliest form of hula is known as hula kahiko, the ancient style. This form was performed with chanting, oli, and traditional instruments such as the ipu, gourd drum, pu'ili, split bamboo sticks, and pahu, sharkskin drum. Unlike the modern hula we often see today with its swaying hips and flowing skirts, hula kahiko was deeply ceremonial. The dancers wore natural adornments, leis of ferns, kukui leaves, or shells, and their movements carried symbolic meaning. Every gesture, from the placement of the hands to the bend of the knees, represented something: a bird in flight, waves of the ocean, or the rising sun. It is important to understand that hula kahiko was never random or improvised. It was highly structured and taught with great discipline. To master hula kahiko was to become a living storyteller, capable of carrying the myths, genealogies, and sacred knowledge of the Hawaiian people. The role of the halau hula was taught in special schools called halau hula. These were more than just dance studios. They were places of spiritual and cultural training. A respected teacher, known as the kumu hula, led the instruction. Students, or haumana, lived with strict discipline, often secluded for long periods, dedicating themselves to the art of hula. The learning process was not only physical but spiritual. Before practicing, students would offer prayers and seek permission from the gods. They would collect plants for adornment in ritualistic ways, always asking the forest for its blessing. Every aspect of the practice reinforced respect for nature, humility, and gratitude. Through this training, hula became more than performance. It became a path of life. The students learned not only dance movements, but also chants, language, poetry, and rituals. In this way, hula preserved Hawaiian history. In a time before written records, hula as a storytelling tradition, at its heart, hula is storytelling. When Hawaiians danced, they were passing down tales of creation, battles, love, and the deeds of gods and chiefs. For example, one chant might tell of Pele, the goddess of fire, shaping the islands with her lava. Another might honor a king, recording his genealogy and great deeds. Because Hawaiians did not originally have a written alphabet, dance and chant became their books, their archives, their living library. To lose hula would have been to lose memory itself. The sacred and the everyday. It is important to note that hula was not only for temples or sacred rituals. While many dances were highly ceremonial, others were performed for social gatherings, celebrations, and communal bonding. At weddings, births, or harvest festivals, hula brought joy and unity. This dual nature, sacred and celebratory, shows the richness of hula. It was flexible, adapting to the needs of the community, whether to honor the gods or simply to express joy and love of life. The arrival of Western influence. When Western explorers and missionaries arrived in Hawaii in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, they encountered hula and often misunderstood it. The missionaries, in particular, saw hula as immoral, too sensual, or pagan. They attempted to suppress it, banning performances and discouraging the practice of Hawaiian traditions. This was a dark time for hula. For decades, the dance nearly vanished from public life. Yet, it did not disappear entirely. Families and communities preserved it in secret, teaching children quietly, ensuring that the knowledge would survive. The cultural renaissance. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, hula began to re-emerge. King David Kalakaua, known as the Merry Monarch, played a central role in this revival. He believed that hula is the language of the heart, therefore the heartbeat of the Hawaiian people. Under his reign, hula was celebrated openly, again performed at royal events, and restored to its place of honor. This revival ensured that hula continued into the modern age, carrying both its ancient roots and its evolving expressions. Hula today. A living tradition in today's Hawaii. Hula exists in two primary forms. Hula kahiko, the ancient traditional style with chants and percussion. Hula awana, the modern style, developed in the 19th and 20th centuries, influenced by Western music, using the ukulele, guitar, and melodic songs. Both forms are celebrated today, not in competition, but in harmony. Hula is performed at festivals, competitions, schools, and community gatherings, keeping the art alive for future generations. The emotional connection. What makes hula so powerful is its ability to connect across time. When an audience watches a dancer move gracefully, they are not just seeing entertainment, they are witnessing history, myth, emotion, and the living spirit of Hawaii. For many in the United States and around the world, hula serves as a bridge into Hawaiian culture. It invites us to slow down. The spiritual symbolism of hula. Chants, gestures, and rituals. To step deeper into the world of hula, we must recognize that every movement, sound, and ritual within the tradition carries layers of meaning. Hula is not just physical expression. It is a spiritual practice, a way of aligning the body and soul with the universe, the land, and the divine. For the Hawaiian people, dance is prayer, and every step upon the earth can be a form of reverence. The sacred role of Manawan cannot understand the spiritual nature of hula without first understanding the Hawaiian concept of mana. In Hawaiian belief, mana is spiritual energy or life force that flows through all beings and elements. A mountain, a tree, a person, or even a word can hold mana. When a dancer performs hula, they channel mana through their body. The chanting of words, the rhythmic movement, and the use of natural adornments all serve to enhance this energy. To dance hula properly is to cultivate mana and share it with the community and with the gods. This is why preparation, discipline, and ritual purity are so vital to the tradition. Chants. The voice of the ancestors' hula chants, known as oli or mele, are more than music. They are verbal maps of history and spirituality. Each chant is composed in poetic Hawaiian language, often using metaphor, symbolism, and layered meaning. For instance, a chant describing a flower might not merely be about a flower. It could symbolize a beloved chief, a lover, or even a divine presence. Hawaiian poetry is famously rich in double meanings, kaiona, requiring deep cultural knowledge to fully understand. The voice of the chanter is considered sacred, carrying words that awaken memory and summon divine attention. Some chants are prayers, offered before beginning hula. Others are narrative, telling the story to which the dance movements will give life. Without chant, the dance loses its context. Together, chant and gesture form a complete language, each dependent on the other. Ritual. Preparation of dancers before performing sacred hula. Dancers often engaged in ritual purification. This might include bathing in the ocean, fasting, or spending time in prayer. These practices were not only symbolic, but also practical, helping dancers focus their minds and prepare spiritually for the task ahead. In the Halau Hula school, students lived under strict guidelines while preparing for performances. Silence, humility, and respect for the teacher were essential. Offering prayers at sacred sites, collecting plants for costumes with reverence, and abstaining from certain foods or behaviors all formed part of this spiritual discipline. Such practices highlight that hula was never casual. It demanded devotion, much like a religious calling. The power of gesture. One of the most striking features of hula is its use of hand gestures and body movements to tell a story. But these gestures are not arbitrary. Each carries deep symbolic meaning. A sweeping motion of the hands might represent ocean waves. A circular gesture could symbolize the sun or the cycle of life. A raised arm may invoke the heavens, while a lowered hand calls upon the earth. Even the position of the feet and knees carries significance. The bent knee stance, for example, symbolizes humility and grounding, keeping the dancer connected to the earth and its energy. When combined with chant, these gestures form a complete narrative. To an untrained eye, the dance may appear graceful yet mysterious. To someone with cultural knowledge, each movement is a word in a story, creating a language of the body. Instruments and their spiritual resonance. Traditional hula was accompanied, not by guitars or ukuleles, but by percussion instruments that echoed the heartbeat of the earth. Each instrument had symbolic and spiritual meaning. Aipu, gourd, drum. Its hollow sound represents fertility and the womb of the earth. Pahu, sharkskin drum. Considered sacred, this drum was used in rituals to call upon gods. Pu'ili, split bamboo rattles. Their shaking sound evoked the rustling of wind and rain. Ili ili, stone castanets. Small stones clicked together, representing the solidity of the land. The sounds of these instruments were not mere background. They were voices of nature itself. When the IPU was struck, it was as if the heartbeat of the land joined the dance. Costumes as spiritual adornments, hula costumes, were not chosen for aesthetics alone. Every lei, skirt, or adornment carried meaning, often connecting the dancer to the gods and the natural world. Kapa skirts made from tree bark symbolized the connection to forest and earth. Leis of ferns and flowers were not just decorations, they embodied the plant's spiritual essence. A dancer wearing a male lei, for example, carried the fragrance and presence of the sacred vine. Kukui nut leis symbolized enlightenment, as the nuts were used for light. Even the process of gathering these materials was ritualistic. Dancers would pray before picking plants, thanking the forest for its gift. This practice reminded them that hula was an exchange between human and nature, never a one-sided act, sacred spaces of performance. While hula today is often performed on stages or beaches, ancient hula frequently took place in sacred spaces known as heiau, temples, or designated outdoor areas. These spaces were consecrated, meaning that performing within them required great respect. Certain hula performances were restricted to religious ceremonies, while others were shared more openly. The setting itself influenced the energy of the dance, reinforcing the idea that hula was inseparable from its environment. Invoking the divine, a central aspect of hula was its ability to invoke the presence of gods and ancestors. Through chant and movement, dancers invited the divine into the performance space. This was not metaphorical for Hawaiians. It was a real, spiritual manifestation. For example, when invoking Pele, the goddess of fire, dancers might stomp their feet to mimic volcanic eruptions, while chanting her fiery genealogy. The performance was a living offering, intended to please or honor the goddess, not just to entertain an audience. This belief made hula an act of responsibility. To dance incorrectly, without respect or preparation, risked dishonoring the gods. This is why the role of the kumu hula teacher was so critical. They ensured that dances were performed properly, preserving both accuracy and sacredness. Hula as prayer. Many hula dances functioned as prayers. Some asked for rain to nourish crops, others for protection in battle, or for safe voyages across the ocean. Just as Christian hymns carry petitions to God, hula served as a direct channel between Hawaiians and the spiritual realm. When watching a dancer sway, gesture, and chant, it is easy to see the meditative quality of the performance. The repetition of movements, the rhythm of the instruments, and the poetic chant all created a trance-like atmosphere. In this way, hula became not only prayer, but meditation, aligning the mind and spirit with the divine. The role of silence, an often overlooked aspect of hula spirituality, is the role of silence. Pauses in chant, moments of stillness, and the quiet discipline of preparation all carry weight. Silence allows space for reflection, for the unseen to be felt, for the divine presence to be acknowledged. In Hawaiian worldview, what is unsaid is just as important as what is spoken. Similarly, in hula, the spaces between movements are as powerful as the movements themselves. Emotional resonance. The spiritual symbolism of hula goes beyond ritual. It also affects the emotions of both dancer and audience. When a dancer embodies love, sorrow, or joy, they transmit these emotions directly, often without words. This emotional authenticity is itself spiritual, creating a bond between performer, audience, and the natural world. Many viewers describe watching hula as a deeply moving experience, one that stirs something beyond intellectual understanding. It touches the heart, echoing the Hawaiian belief that hula is indeed the language of the heart. Preservation of the sacred. Despite centuries of outside influence, suppression, and modernization, the spiritual dimension of hula has never been lost. Contemporary practitioners continue to honor rituals, chants, and the sacredness of movement. In festivals and cultural gatherings across Hawaii, spiritual hula is still performed. Hula and nature. The sacred bond. Between dance and the Hawaiian environment in Hawaii, the natural world is not separate from human life. It is kin. Mountains are ancestors, the ocean is a pathway of life, and forests are sacred guardians. Every breeze, every rainfall, every blooming flower is a living reminder of the divine presence woven into the islands. Hula, as the art of Hawaiian expression, reflects this worldview in every gesture, chant, and adornment. When we examine hula through the lens of nature, we discover an art form that is inseparable from the environment that gave birth to it. The land does not just inspire the dance, it is the dance. The Hawaiian worldview, living in harmony with nature. Ancient Hawaiians understood that their survival depended on balance with the natural world. Fishing, farming, building, and even religious practices were guided by respect for the environment. They developed complex systems, such as kapu, sacred laws, to protect resources. For example, certain fishing grounds were closed during spawning seasons, and certain plants could only be harvested with ritual observance. This respect extended directly into hula. Every dance was an acknowledgement of nature's gifts. When a dancer moved their hands to imitate flowing water or blooming flowers, it was not merely symbolic, it was a way of honoring the natural forces that sustained life. Nature in hula chants and poetry, Hawaiian poetry, or mele, is filled with references to nature. A mountain might symbolize strength and stability. A flower could represent beauty, love, or even fragility. The ocean often appears in chants, sometimes as a symbol of life's journeys, sometimes as a metaphor for deep emotion. Hula dancers bring these metaphors to life through movement. For example, a gesture of spreading arms wide may mimic waves rolling onto shore. A swaying of the hips may echo the rhythm of wind through tall grass. A cupped hand raised to the lips might suggest drinking water, symbolizing nourishment and gratitude. In this way, hula serves as a physical embodiment of Hawaiian poetry, grounding abstract symbolism in the physical world. The ocean, pathways and inspiration. The ocean is central to Hawaiian identity. It is both a barrier and a bridge, connecting the islands to one another and to distant lands across the Pacific. For Hawaiians, the sea is alive, a source of food, travel, and spiritual connection. Hula reflects this relationship through movements that mimic waves, tides, and currents. Dancers may sway side to side like the rocking of a canoe or bend low, to the ground, to symbolize the gathering of fish. The rhythm of the ocean, sometimes calm and soothing, sometimes powerful and fierce, is echoed in the tempo of drums and the flow of choreography. Hula chants about the sea often carry deeper meanings. A storm at sea may symbolize inner turmoil or political conflict. A calm horizon may represent peace, unity, or the promise of a new beginning. The land, mountains, forests, and fertility. The Hawaiian landscape, with its dramatic cliffs, fertile valleys, and volcanic slopes, has always been considered sacred. Mountains, or pu, are often described as physical forms of the gods themselves. Volcanic eruptions are not disasters, but manifestations of Pele, the goddess of fire, reshaping the land. Hula frequently draws upon these images. When dancers stomp firmly on the ground, they echo the stability of the mountains. When arms rise high above the head, they may symbolize towering cliffs or trees reaching toward the sky. Forests, too, play a vital role. They provide the plants and flowers used for hula adornments, but they are more than just resources. They are spiritual spaces. Gathering materials for hula costumes involves prayers of thanks, recognizing the forest as a living being that gives of itself. Seasons and cycles. The Hawaiian year was traditionally guided by cycles of the moon, tides, and seasons. Farming and fishing followed these rhythms, and so too did hula. Certain dances were performed during harvest times, while others were tied to ceremonies marking seasonal transitions. For example, dances for Lono, the god of agriculture and fertility, were performed during the makahiki season, a time of peace, celebration, and abundance. In these dances, movements mimicked planting, growth, and the falling of rain, reinforcing gratitude for the Earth's cycles. This close alignment between hula and natural rhythms reveals that the dance was not just artistic expression, it was ecological awareness in motion. Flowers and plants. Living symbols. Hawaii's flowers and plants are not just admired for their beauty, They are cherished as symbols of identity, love, and spirituality. Hula incorporates them both literally in costumes and leis and symbolically in chants and gestures. Lehua flower, associated with the goddess Pele, symbolizing resilience and fiery love. Male vine, sacred and fragrant, symbolizing peace, honor, and connection. Kukoi nut tree, known as the tree of light, representing wisdom and enlightenment. Tai leaves, used for protection, purification, and sacred adornment. When a dancer adorns themselves with these plants, they are not just accessorizing, they are embodying the essence of the plant, carrying its energy into the performance. Animals. In hula symbolism, animals, too, hold deep symbolic weight in Hawaiian culture and hula. The honu, sea turtle, represents navigation, longevity, and wisdom. The mano, shark, is both feared and revered, often seen as a protector spirit. Birds, such as the iwa, frigate bird, symbolize guidance and freedom, while the puio, owl, is a guardian spirit associated with ancestors. Movements in hula may imitate these creatures. A swooping hand may suggest a bird in flight, while a slow, deliberate motion may recall the graceful swimming of a turtle. In doing so, dancers celebrate the interconnectedness of all life. Hula, as environmental stewardship, by embodying nature in dance, hula does more than honor the environment. It encourages care for it. When people see the ocean as sacred, they are more likely to protect it. When they see the land as a living ancestor, they are less likely to exploit it recklessly. Modern practitioners of hula often speak of their responsibility not just to preserve the dance, but also to preserve the environment it celebrates. Festivals and cultural events frequently include lessons on sustainability, reminding participants that cultural survival is linked to ecological survival. Healing and the natural world, nature is also tied to healing in Hawaiian tradition, and hula can serve as part of this process. Certain dances are believed to restore balance, not only emotionally but physically. When combined with chants and natural medicines, hula becomes a holistic practice of wellness. The swaying movements can be meditative, aligning breath with rhythm, much like modern yoga or tai chi. For Hawaiians, this is not coincidental. It is the natural flow of life expressed through the body. Hula as a map of place. Another fascinating aspect of hula is its role as a geographical archive. Many dances are tied to specific locations, recounting the stories of valleys, rivers, or mountains. These dances act like living maps, preserving knowledge of the land through movement and chant. For example, a chant about Waipio Valley might describe its waterfalls, taro fields, and legendary chiefs. A dance performed to this chant keeps that valley alive in cultural memory, even for those who may never visit it in person. This connection reinforces the Hawaiian belief that knowing the land is knowing oneself. To forget the land is to forget identity. Nature's emotional echo. Finally, we must acknowledge the emotional resonance of nature in hula. Watching a dancer evoke the crashing waves or blooming flowers is not just visually beautiful. It awakens a feeling of connection. It reminds us of our own ties to the natural world, encouraging reflection and gratitude. In modern life, especially in the United States, where audiences often come from fast-paced urban environments, this connection can be deeply healing. Hula in Hawaiian social life. Community, celebration, and cultural identity. Hula is often described as the heart of Hawaiian culture, and nowhere is this more evident than in its role within community life. Beyond the sacred rituals, beyond the spiritual chants and connections to gods, hula has always been a vibrant social force, binding people together, marking important events, and expressing identity. While earlier parts of our journey have explored the sacred and natural dimensions of hula, this chapter turns to its social role, how hula became the language of family, village, and nation, hula as the voice of the people, In ancient Hawaiian society, hula was not limited to temples or religious ceremonies. It was woven into daily life and community gatherings. Weddings, births, coming-of-age ceremonies, harvest festivals, and even victorious battles were all occasions for hula. Unlike Western traditions where music and dance might be seen as entertainment, hula was never just for fun. It was communication. It carried stories, emotions, and cultural identity in ways that words alone could not capture. At a wedding, a hula might celebrate love by likening the couple's union to blooming flowers or intertwining vines. At a chief's victory feast, a hula might recount the battle in vivid metaphor, immortalizing the event in collective memory. In each case, the dance spoke for the people, giving voice to their pride, joy, sorrow, and gratitude. Hula and festivals. One of the most joyful aspects of hula was its role in festivals and communal celebrations. During times of abundance, such as after a successful harvest or during the makahiki season, a time dedicated to peace and the god Lono, entire communities came together in dance. In these settings, hula expressed gratitude to the gods but also served as a reminder of unity. Men, women, elders, and children participated, sometimes as dancers, sometimes as chanters, sometimes as audience members encouraging with chants of approval. The communal nature of these gatherings reinforced a sense of belonging. Through hula, everyone felt part of something larger than themselves, a shared cultural rhythm that beat like a communal heart. Gender and hula, roles and meanings. Both men and women have always played vital roles in hula. Contrary to the popular stereotype that hula is primarily a women's dance, many traditional forms were performed by men, especially in ancient times. Men's hula. Often powerful, with strong stamping movements and warrior-like gestures, sometimes associated with battle or athletic prowess. Women's hula. Graceful, flowing, and often connected to fertility, love, or the nurturing aspects of nature. Neither form was seen as superior. They were complementary, reflecting the balance of masculine and feminine energies in Hawaiian worldview. This inclusivity underscores hula's role in expressing the full spectrum of human and natural life. Hula in storytelling of chiefs and royalty in Hawaiian society, chiefs, ali'i, were central figures, believed to carry divine ancestry. Their genealogies, deeds, and legacies were preserved through hula. At royal gatherings, dancers would perform elaborate chants and movements recounting the lineage of a chief, ensuring that his or her place in history was remembered. These performances were not mere flattery, they were acts of preservation, embedding the chief's legacy into cultural memory. In this sense, hula was a living archive of leadership, serving a function similar to that of history books or official records in Western societies. The role of humor and play not all hula was solemn or serious. Some dances incorporated humor, satire, or playful energy. Known as hula olapa or hula pahu, these dances could poke fun at human folly, exaggerate daily life situations, or celebrate sensuality in a light-hearted way. This playful aspect of hula shows the cultural flexibility of Hawaiians. They understood that dance could uplift the spirit, strengthen social bonds, and even challenge authority through subtle satire. It was a reminder that laughter and joy were as essential to life as reverence and ritual. Hula and courtship hula also played a role in courtship and expressions of love. Some dances were overtly romantic, filled with gestures that symbolized desire, affection, or admiration. The blooming of flowers, the weaving of leis, or the flight of birds might all serve as metaphors for romantic relationships. For young couples, participating in or watching such dances could be a socially accepted way of expressing emotions that might otherwise remain hidden. In this way, hula acted as a cultural language of love, subtle, poetic, and deeply meaningful. Hula and children were often introduced to hula at a young age, learning basic movements, chants, and rhythms. For them, hula was not only a skill but also a way of absorbing cultural values. Through playful dances and chants, children learned about respect for nature, honor for ancestors, and the importance of community. These lessons were passed not through lectures, but through embodied experience, through movement, rhythm, and collective joy. This tradition ensured that each new generation carried forward the cultural heartbeat of Hawaii, hula, as community identity. The community level, hula served as a symbol of identity. Different regions and villages developed their own styles, chants, and dances, often tied to local legends or landscapes. To watch a dance from a particular area was to learn about that community's values, history, and sense of place. For example, a valley community might celebrate its fertile fields through dances about farming and rain. A coastal village might emphasize oceanic themes, with movements imitating waves, fish, and navigation. This regional diversity gave hula richness and depth, making it a patchwork of cultural identities across the islands. The role of halau in social life, as mentioned earlier, halau hula, hula schools, were centers of training and discipline. But beyond their educational role, they also served as community hubs. A halau was a place where people gathered not only to learn dance, but also to bond, share food, tell stories, and support one another. The teacher, kumu hula, was more than an instructor. He or she was a community leader, guiding not just in dance but also in values, etiquette, and cultural pride. Through these schools, hula became a living thread connecting individuals to their communities and to the broader Hawaiian identity. Hula and healing in community hula also served as a form of communal healing. After loss, conflict, or natural disaster, dances could be performed to restore harmony. By gathering together to dance and chant, communities found strength in unity. The physical rhythm of hula, the sound of instruments, and the collective presence of people moving as one created an atmosphere of restoration. Even today, many practitioners speak of the emotional release and healing power that hula brings, not only to individuals but to entire communities. Celebrations beyond Hawaii, even before the global spread of Hawaiian culture, hula had begun traveling beyond the islands. Hawaiian voyagers and later performers brought hula to other Pacific communities and eventually to audiences around the world. For Hawaiian communities living abroad, hula became a way of maintaining identity and connection. Gatherings in California, Nevada, or Washington often included hula performances, serving as cultural anchors for Hawaiians living far from home. This expansion illustrates that hula is not bound by geography. Wherever it is danced, it carries the essence of Hawaiian community. Spirit on social dimensions. In modern hula today, hula continues to thrive not only in sacred ceremonies but also in social gatherings. Festivals, competitions, and community events bring people together across generations. Events like the Merry Monarch Festival showcase the artistry of hula, while local community gatherings celebrate it as a living tradition. In each case, the social dimension remains strong. Hula continues to unite, to entertain, to honor, and to express identity. The balance of sacred and social. What makes hula unique in the world of dance is its ability to balance the sacred and the social. It is both prayer and play, reverence and joy, history and living memory. Few art forms manage to encompass such wide emotional and cultural terrain. Through this balance, hula has remained relevant across centuries. It adapts to new contexts without losing its hula in the time of change, suppression, survival, and adaptation as. We continue our journey into the story of hula. We reach one of the most challenging chapters in Hawaiian history, the arrival of outsiders. For centuries, hula thrived as the heartbeat of Hawaiian culture, uniting the sacred, the natural, and the social. But with the arrival of European explorers, missionaries, and eventually American colonizers, Hula faced suppression, misunderstanding, and transformation. This period is crucial to understanding how Hula survived, adapted, and ultimately re-emerged as a symbol of resilience and pride. The arrival of Western explorers. In 1778, British explorer Captain James Cook landed in Hawaii. His arrival marked the beginning of profound changes for the islands. At first, Hawaiians and foreigners exchanged gifts, knowledge, and curiosity. But over time, these encounters also brought disease, cultural disruption, and the introduction of Western values. For outsiders, Hula was one of the most striking aspects of Hawaiian culture. They saw the dances at festivals, feasts, and royal gatherings. But their interpretations were colored by their own worldviews. What Hawaiians saw as sacred storytelling, Europeans often interpreted as exotic entertainment, or worse, immoral display. The arrival of missionaries in 1820. The first Protestant missionaries from New England arrived in Hawaii. Their mission was to convert Hawaiians to Christianity, and in their efforts, they judged Hawaiian traditions, including hula, through a narrow moral lens. To the missionaries, hula was shocking. The bare feet, the hip movements, the chants honoring gods, all of these seemed indecent or pagan in their eyes. They considered it sinful, a remnant of heathenism that needed to be erased. Within just a few years, the missionaries gained significant influence, not only in religious matters but in politics and education. They persuaded Hawaiian rulers to ban or restrict hula performances, especially in public spaces. The ban and its impact by the mid-1800s, hula was effectively outlawed in many contexts. Public performances were discouraged, permits were required, and the sacred dimension of hula was actively suppressed. This was a devastating blow to Hawaiian culture. Hula was not just a dance, it was history, language, and spirituality in motion. To silence hula was to silence the Hawaiian voice itself. For many Hawaiians, this period was one of deep cultural loss. Generations grew up under the shadow of missionary disapproval, and much knowledge of chants, movements, and traditions risked being forgotten. Underground survival. Despite suppression, hula never truly disappeared. Instead, it went underground. Families, villages, and secret groups continued to practice it quietly, away from the eyes of missionaries and colonial authorities. In hidden gatherings, teachers passed on chants and movements to students, preserving knowledge that might otherwise have vanished. Adornments were still gathered, instruments still played, and dances still performed, but often in private homes or secluded outdoor spaces. This quiet resistance ensured that hula lived on, even during its darkest days. King David Kalakaua. The Merry Monarch, a turning point, came with the reign of King David Kalakaua, who ruled Hawaii from 1874 to 1891. Known as the Merry Monarch, Kalakaua was a strong supporter of Hawaiian traditions, arts, and identity. He famously declared, "Hula is the language of the heart, and therefore the heartbeat of the Hawaiian people." Under his leadership, hula was revived and celebrated once again at royal events and state occasions. He encouraged public performances, bringing hula out of secrecy and restoring it to a place of honor. Kalakaua's reign is remembered as a cultural renaissance, not only for hula but for Hawaiian music, language, and arts. The revival he championed planted seeds that continue to flourish today. The fall of the Hawaiian kingdom, tragically, the Hawaiian kingdom was overthrown in 1893 by American and European settlers, supported by U.S. military power. The Queen, Liliuokalani, was deposed, and Hawaii was eventually annexed by the United States. During this turbulent period, Hawaiian identity was further suppressed. English became the dominant language. Hawaiian schools were discouraged from teaching their native tongue, and cultural practices continued to be marginalized. Yet hula persisted. Even as political power was stripped from Hawaiians, their cultural heartbeat refused to stop. Adaptation and the birth of hula, Awana as Hawaii. Moved into the 20th century, hula began to evolve in response to outside influences. With the introduction of Western instruments such as the guitar and ukulele, as well as melodies from Christian hymns and American folk songs, a new form of hula developed, hula awana, modern hula. This style was more melodic, often accompanied by singing rather than chanting. Movements became more fluid and visually appealing to Western audiences. Costumes also shifted, incorporating colorful skirts and adornments that appealed to tourist expectations. Hula awana allowed hula to survive in public spaces, where the older form, hula kahiko, was often still viewed with suspicion. While some lamented the loss of sacred depth, others saw this adaptation as a clever strategy, a way to keep hula alive and visible in a rapidly changing world. Hula and the tourism industry. By the early 20th century, Hawaii was becoming a popular destination for travelers, particularly from the mainland United States. Tourism promoters quickly realized that hula was a powerful attraction. Hotels, resorts, and cruise ships began offering hula shows for visitors. These performances often simplified or romanticized the tradition, emphasizing beauty and exotic appeal over cultural depth. Grass skirts, coconut bras, and exaggerated hip movements became iconic, but these were often far from authentic. This commercialization spread images of hula around the world, but it also distorted its meaning. For many tourists, hula became entertainment rather than sacred storytelling. The double-edged sword of commercialization. The use of hula in tourism was both a blessing and a challenge. On one hand, it kept hula visible and provided livelihoods for Hawaiian performers. On the other hand, it risked turning hula into a caricature, stripping away its spiritual and cultural richness. Some practitioners worried that the sacred aspects of hula would be forgotten, overshadowed by flashy performances for audiences who did not understand its deeper meaning. Others argued that even commercial hula still carried pieces of Hawaiian spirit and kept the art form alive. This tension between preservation and adaptation continues to shape hula today. Seeds of resistance and cultural pride, even during commercialization, many Hawaiians continued to protect the traditional form, hula kahiko. Teachers in private schools emphasized authenticity, insisting that chants, movements, and rituals be preserved with accuracy. By the mid-20th century, a broader Hawaiian cultural renaissance began to take root. Inspired by civil rights movements and growing awareness of indigenous rights worldwide, Hawaiians demanded recognition of their language, land, and traditions. Hula was central to this movement. Practitioners reasserted that hula was not just entertainment. It was identity, sovereignty, and resistance. Hula as survival. Looking back on this period, we can see that hula's survival was nothing short of remarkable. Despite bans, missionary disapproval, political overthrow, and commercialization, the tradition never died. Instead, it adapted, resisted, and transformed, always carrying the essence of Hawaiian culture within it. This resilience reflects the spirit of the Hawaiian people themselves. Just as a tree bends but does not break in the wind, Hula and the Hawaiian Renaissance, revival, pride, and sovereignty. The 20th century marked a turning point for the Hawaiian Islands. After decades of cultural suppression, the Hawaiian people began to reclaim their language, land, and traditions. At the very heart of this revival stood hula, an art that had survived colonization, bans, and commercialization. In this chapter, we will explore how hula became a beacon of pride during the Hawaiian Renaissance, how it helped fuel cultural sovereignty, and how it continues to serve as both a spiritual practice and a political statement. The Hawaiian Renaissance, a cultural awakening by the 1960s and 1970s, Hawaiians had endured nearly a century of American annexation and assimilation policies. English had replaced Hawaiian in schools, land had been taken, and many younger Hawaiians were disconnected from their ancestral language and traditions. Yet, in this era of global civil rights movements and indigenous activism, Hawaiians began to demand recognition and restoration. The Hawaiian Renaissance was born, a cultural and political movement that sought to revive language, arts, and identity. At the center of this movement was Hula. For many, to dance was to resist erasure, to assert identity, and to embody pride in being Hawaiian. The revival of Hula Kahiko, one of the most powerful outcomes of the Renaissance, was the revival of Hula Kahiko, the ancient form of hula. For decades, public performances had been dominated by the modern style, hula awana, with its guitars, ukuleles, and tourist-friendly melodies. Hula Kahiko, with its chants, drums, and ritual elements, had often been confined to small circles of practitioners. During the Renaissance, teachers, kumu hula, and cultural leaders emphasized the importance of returning to the roots. They reintroduced chants, percussion instruments, and sacred adornments. They insisted that hula be understood as more than entertainment. It was cultural heritage, deserving of respect. This revival not only preserved ancient traditions, but also educated new generations about the depth and spirituality of Hula Merry Monarch Festival, a modern celebration of tradition. In 1963, the Merry Monarch Festival was founded in Hilo, Hawaii. Originally conceived as a way to boost tourism, it quickly transformed into the most prestigious hula competition and cultural event in the world. Named in honor of King David Kalakaua, the festival became the stage where Hula Kahiko and Hula Awana could both be showcased, celebrated, and judged for excellence. The Merry Monarch Festival played a crucial role in legitimizing traditional hula in the eyes of both Hawaiians and global audiences. It became a gathering place for halau hula schools, from across the islands and beyond, fostering community, pride, and cultural exchange. Today, the festival is not just a performance. It is a reaffirmation of Hawaiian identity. Each year, thousands of Hawaiians and visitors gather to witness the living heartbeat of a people expressed through dance, hula as political expression. During the Renaissance, hula was not only cultural, but also political. To dance hula was to reclaim space that had been denied. It was a declaration of survival in the face of colonization. Chants and dances performed at protests, gatherings, and political events reminded both Hawaiians and outsiders that culture cannot be silenced. Just as the land was sacred, so too was the dance that honored it. For many, hula became a visible form of cultural sovereignty, a way of saying, "We are still here, our traditions endure." The rebirth of Hawaiian language. Through hula, another vital part of the Renaissance was the revival of the Hawaiian language, Olelo Hawaii. By the mid-20th century, the language was on the brink of extinction, with very few native speakers left. Hula played a critical role in its rebirth. Chants and songs preserved ancient Hawaiian words, metaphors, and grammar. Teachers insisted that students learn the language to fully understand the meanings behind chants and movements. This integration of language and dance ensured that Hawaiian was not only spoken but lived. Today, immersion schools, university programs, and community efforts have brought the language back, with hula continuing to be one of its strongest vessels. Hula and land rights movements. In the 1970s and 1980s, Hawaiians began mobilizing for land rights, opposing military use of sacred lands and demanding recognition of indigenous claims. Hula was often present at these demonstrations. Dancers performed at rallies, their chants invoking the gods and ancestors connected to the land. Through these performances, they reminded the world that land is not just property. It is genealogy, memory, and spirit. Hula, in this context, became a powerful tool of activism, bridging culture and politics, reminding Hawaiians of their collective identity and rights. The globalization of Hula-as. The Renaissance gained momentum. Hula spread far beyond Hawaii's shores. Hawaiian communities on the U.S. mainland began establishing halau hula, teaching both kahiko and awana to new generations. Festivals sprang up in California, Nevada, and Washington, serving as cultural anchors for Hawaiians living abroad. Even beyond the United States, hula found passionate practitioners. Japan, in particular, embraced hula, with thousands of students, and dozens of schools dedicated to the dance. This global spread ensured that hula would never again risk extinction. Yet globalization also sparked important questions. How do you maintain authenticity when teaching hula in non-Hawaiian contexts? What does it mean to carry Hawaiian culture across oceans? For many, the answer lay in respect, teaching not just the movements but the history, language, and values behind them. The role of kumu hula in the Renaissance central to this revival were the kumu hula, or hula masters. These teachers dedicated their lives to preserving knowledge, training students, and maintaining the spiritual integrity of the art. A kumu hula is not merely an instructor, but a cultural guardian. They carry genealogies of knowledge passed down through generations, and their role extends far beyond dance technique. They instill discipline, humility, respect, and cultural pride. During the Renaissance, kumu hula emerged as cultural leaders, guiding communities not only in performance but in identity. Their dedication ensured that hula was not reduced to entertainment, but honored as heritage. Women as leaders in the revival. The Hawaiian Renaissance also saw women playing key roles in the revival of hula. Female kumu hula and dancers reclaimed their ancestral power, reminding communities of the balance between masculine and feminine energies in Hawaiian culture. Many women led schools, organized festivals, and used hula as a means of education and activism. Their leadership reinforced that hula is not bound by gender roles, but thrives through inclusivity and balance. Healing and pride. Through hula, for many Hawaiians, the Renaissance was a period of healing. Decades of colonization had inflicted wounds, of shame and disconnection from tradition. Through hula, people found pride again, to learn a chant in Hawaiian, to wear a lei gathered with prayer, to move in rhythm with ancient gestures. These acts restored dignity and belonging. Hula reminded Hawaiians that they were heirs to a profound cultural legacy, one that could not be erased by colonial powers. Hula today, a living renaissance. The Hawaiian Renaissance did not end in the 20th century. It continues today. Every new generation of dancers carries forward the revival, blending tradition with innovation, sacredness with creativity. Hula is now taught in schools, celebrated in global festivals, and integrated into cultural activism. It remains a living practice, continually renewed, continually rooted in heritage. For audiences in the United States and beyond, watching a performance of hula today is not just witnessing dance, it is witnessing the artistry of hula, costumes, adornments, and instruments. When one sees a hula performance, it is not only the movement of the dancers that captivates the senses. The artistry of hula encompasses much more: the rustle of skirts made from natural fibers, the shimmer of fragrant lei, the rhythms of percussion, and the resonance of chants or songs. Each element carries history, meaning, and symbolism. To truly understand hula, one must also understand the artistry that surrounds it. Costumes. A language of their own in hula, costumes are never merely decorative. They are a language of their own, expressing relationships to nature, gods, and ancestors. Traditionally, costumes were made from natural materials gathered with reverence. Every item was chosen not just for beauty, but for spiritual and symbolic value. The process of preparing a costume could involve rituals, chants, and prayers to honor the plants and elements used. Pa'u, skirt. The skirt, often made from kapa, bark cloth, tai leaves, or other plant fibers, was a central element. In ancient times, kapa was dyed with natural pigments, each color holding its own meaning: red for sacredness, yellow for royalty, black for strength. Tie leaf skirts, still common in traditional hula today, rustle with every step, creating sound and movement that emphasize the dance. Lei, garlands. Lei are perhaps the most recognizable adornment. They can be worn on the head, neck, wrists, and ankles. Far more than decoration, lei are offerings to the gods, the land, and the audience. Each flower, leaf, or seed has its own symbolism. The male vine, for example, is associated with peace and honor. Plumeria, though commonly seen today, was not traditionally used as it was introduced later. Coupe, wrist and ankle adornments. These adornments accentuate movement. Made from leaves, shells, or seeds, they highlight the motion of the hands and feet, drawing attention to the storytelling within the dance. Headpieces, haku lei. The haku lei, worn on the head, frames the dancer's face, focusing attention on expression. Traditionally woven from ferns, flowers, or grasses, it connects the dancer to nature and spirituality. Ritual in costuming. The creation and wearing of hula costumes were, and often still are, deeply ritualistic. Before gathering, plants, dancers, or costume makers offered prayers, acknowledging the spirit of the forest and asking permission to take what was needed. The act of gathering was itself a spiritual practice, emphasizing gratitude and respect. When dancers adorn themselves before a performance, it is a sacred transformation. They are not merely dressing up, they are preparing to embody ancestors, gods, or natural forces. The costume completes the dancer's identity in the performance. Musical instruments. The pulse of hula hula is inseparable from its music, and its music is inseparable from its instruments. Traditional hula kahiko relies on percussion, voice, and rhythm, creating an atmosphere that is both primal and sacred. Ipu, gourd drum. The ipu is one of the most iconic hula instruments, made from a large gourd. It produces deep, resonant tones when struck with the hand. The IPU provides rhythm for chants and movements, anchoring the dance with steady beats. Ipu heke, double gourd drum. A larger, double gourd drum that creates powerful sounds. The Ipu heke is often used by kumu hula as they chant and lead performances. Pahu, sacred drum. The pahu, made from a hollowed-out coconut tree trunk and covered with shark skin, is considered sacred. It was often dedicated to the gods and played only in temples or during highly ritualistic dances. Its deep sound connects dancers to the earth and the divine. Ili ili, stone castanets. Smooth river stones held in the hands and clicked together to create rhythm. Their sharp sounds contrast with the deep tones of drums, adding texture to the music. Coupe shells and seed rattles, some adornments. Double as instruments, creating percussive sounds with every movement. The sounds emphasize rhythm and bring another layer of music to the performance. Pu, conch shell. Though not used continuously, the PU is blown to signal beginnings, call attention, or mark sacred moments. Its haunting sound resonates across distances, symbolizing communication between human and divine. The power of chant. Oli. Central to hula kahiko is the chant, or oli. The human voice is the oldest and most powerful instrument in hula. Through chant, words come alive, carrying stories of creation, love, battle, and nature. Chants are performed in rhythms and tones that align with the dance. Some are strong and forceful, echoing in the chest. Others are soft and lyrical, carried like the wind. Each chant is both sound and meaning, both art and history. For the chanter, Performing Oli is a sacred responsibility. The words may have been passed down for centuries, carrying ancestral knowledge. To chant them is to connect past and present, honoring those who came before. The aesthetics of performance. To watch a hula performance is to experience harmony of senses. The visual, auditory, and spiritual elements come together in a complete aesthetic. Movement and sound. Every step or gesture is tied to rhythm. The instruments and chants guide the body, so the dance and music are inseparable. Costume and gesture. The way a skirt moves emphasizes hip sways while lei draw the eye, to hand gestures that tell stories. Expression. The face is as important as the body. Through smiles, intensity, or solemn expressions, dancers convey emotion that deepens the story. Space. Performances often take place in open areas or on stages, but traditionally they were held on sacred grounds. The environment, whether indoors or outdoors, becomes part of the performance. Symbolism in color and colors and designs in hula costuming are never random. Yellow feathers might symbolize the sacred power of high chiefs. Red might represent Pele, the goddess of fire and volcanoes. Black might signify death, strength, or the night. Patterns painted on kapa cloth could carry symbolic meanings, from genealogy to natural elements. In this way, costumes became another layer of storytelling, adornments as living beings. In Hawaiian worldview, plants and materials used in adornments are not lifeless objects. They are living beings with spirit, mana. When dancers wear lei or kupe, they are not simply accessorizing, they are carrying relationships with the natural world. This perspective transforms how we see hula. Every rustle of leaves, every scent of flowers, every sound of stones or shells is alive, participating in the performance. Evolution of hula costuming. While ancient hula costumes were made from natural materials, modern hula has incorporated new fabrics and designs. Cotton skirts with printed patterns, often called paiu skirts today, are common in practice and performance. These are practical, colorful, and durable, making them suitable for both training and modern stage shows. Still, many halau hula schools emphasize traditional attire during sacred performances, ensuring that ancient practices are preserved alongside modern adaptations. Balancing authenticity and creativity. One of the ongoing discussions in hula today is how to balance authenticity with creativity. While tradition requires strict adherence to ritual, costume, and chant, modern performance also invites innovation. Some contemporary hula performances experiment with lighting, stage design, or fusion with other art forms. Yet, even in these innovations, respect for tradition remains central. A modern performance may use Western instruments or new fabrics, but the storytelling, discipline, and spiritual essence of hula continue unchanged. The experience for the audience, for audiences. In the U.S. and around the world, the artistry of hula is mesmerizing. The sway of skirts, the scent of fresh lei, the deep pulse of drums, the haunting power of chants, all of these create an experience that transcends entertainment. Many spectators describe feeling moved, even if they do not understand the Hawaiian language. The universality of rhythm, beauty, and emotion allows hula to communicate across cultures, while still remaining deeply Hawaiian at its core. The artistry. As identity, ultimately, the costumes, adornments, instruments, and chants of hula are not just artistic choices. They are identity made visible. They declare, this is who we are, this is where we come from, this is what we honor. Through every lei, every drum beat, every gesture, hula embodies a culture that has survived suppression and continues to flourish. The sacred heart of hula. Spirituality, rituals, and ceremonial practice. To understand hula only as dance is to miss its deepest essence. Hula is not merely movement or performance. It is ceremony, prayer, and communion with the divine. At its core, hula is spiritual practice, an offering to the gods, the land, and the ancestors. For the Hawaiian people, spirituality is not separate from daily life. The sacred and the ordinary are intertwined, and hula stands as one of the clearest expressions of this worldview, hula as an offering to the gods. From its earliest origins, hula was performed in honor of the gods. Each deity had its own chants, gestures, and rituals. Laka, the goddess of hula, fertility and the forest. Dancers often dedicate performances to Laka, asking her to inspire graceful movements and bless the audience. Shrines to Laka are still built within halau hula schools, decorated with greenery, flowers, and offerings. Pele, the goddess of fire and volcanoes. Some hula honor her fiery power, with movements that echo volcanic eruptions or molten lava. Hi'iaka, sister of Pele, associated with healing, hula, and new growth. She embodies the balance of destruction and renewal. Kane, Ku, and Lono, major Hawaiian gods representing life, war, and peace. Hula dedicated to them might celebrate fertility, prosperity, or victory. Each performance was an act of devotion. The dance was prayer in motion, a bridge between humans and the divine. The sacred role of the kumu hula in spiritual hula, the kumu hula, teacher, master, acts not only as instructor but also as priest. Their role extends beyond technique. They are guardians of ritual knowledge and mediators between dancers and the spiritual world. Before performances, a kumu may lead prayers, offer chants, and guide dancers in rituals of purification. The kumu ensures that sacred protocols are followed, that costumes and adornments are gathered with respect, and that the performance honors the gods. Rituals of preparation. The preparation for a sacred hula is itself a ceremony. Gathering materials. Plants for lei and costumes are collected with prayer. Dancers often ask permission before cutting leaves or flowers, acknowledging the life and spirit of the forest. Purification. Dancers may bathe in the ocean or streams, cleansing themselves physically and spiritually. Salt water, considered sacred, washes away negativity. Prayer and chant. Before donning costumes, dancers offer chants to Laka and other deities. This ritual invites divine presence and guidance, silence and focus. Some preparations require silence, ensuring that dancers enter the performance with concentration and humility. Through these steps, the dancer transforms from an individual into a vessel ready to embody story and spirit. Hula performed in heiau, temples. In ancient times, some forms of hula were performed in heiau, Hawaiian temples. These sacred spaces, built from stone and dedicated to specific gods, were centers of religious life. At agricultural heiau, hula might be performed to Lono to ensure fertility and good harvests. At war temples, hula could honor Ku, asking for strength in battle. At shrines to Laka, dancers performed to express devotion and gratitude for her gift of hula. Performances in heiau were not entertainment, they were sacred rituals. Participants were carefully chosen, chants were performed with precision, and mistakes could be seen as spiritual offenses. The role of chants in ceremony chants, oli, were the heart of ceremonial hula. They carried the prayers, genealogies, and invocations necessary for connecting with the gods. For example, the mele pule, prayer chants, might call upon divine presence, while mele inoa, name chants, might honor chiefs or gods. Each oli had rules of rhythm, pitch, and delivery that reinforced its sacred power. The words were never casual. To chant was to release mana, spiritual energy, into the world. Sacred gestures and meanings. Every gesture in ceremonial hula carried layers of symbolism. A raised hand might signify the rising sun. A swaying motion could represent the ocean's rhythm. Hands held outward might offer gifts to the gods. Unlike modern entertainment dances, ceremonial movements were often slower, deliberate, and weighted with spiritual intent. The purpose was not to please an audience but to communicate with unseen forces. Kapu. The sacred rules of conduct. Ceremonial hula was governed by kapu, sacred laws that dictated behavior. These rules ensured respect for the gods and protection of spiritual integrity. Certain chants or dances could only be performed by specific lineages. Mistakes in ritual could bring misfortune, so discipline and training were strict. Some hula were forbidden outside of sacred ceremonies, preserving their power. These rules gave hula its seriousness and reminded dancers that they were participating in more than art. They were entering sacred space. Hula as healing beyond honoring. God's hula was also seen as healing practice. Movements, chants, and music were believed to restore balance between body, mind, and spirit. Some hula ceremonies were performed to heal illness, bless new life, or ease grief. The dance became a way to align human beings with the rhythms of nature and the divine. For Hawaiians, health was not just physical but spiritual. Hula, with its prayers and movements, helped restore harmony. The spiritual energy of performance. For those who witness ceremonial hula, the experience is often described as transformative. The air feels charged, the chants reverberate deeply, and the movements carry a sense of weight and power. Even for audiences who do not understand Hawaiian language or symbolism, the spiritual intensity is palpable. It is as though the dance itself carries universal energy, reminding us of our shared humanity and connection to the earth. Sacred spaces. Today, while many heiau are now ruins, the tradition of sacred hula continues. Halau hula often maintain shrines, tulaka within their schools, adorned with plants, stones, and offerings. Ceremonial hula is still performed at festivals, spiritual gatherings, and important community events. These performances remind Hawaiians and others that hula is not only history, but living spirituality. In some cases, ceremonies are held at restored or protected heiau, reconnecting the practice to its ancient roots. Balance between sacred and secular. In modern Hawaii, there is a balance between sacred and secular forms of hula. Tourist shows and contemporary performances bring joy and entertainment, while ceremonial hula preserves the sacred dimension. This coexistence reflects the adaptability of hula. It can be both sacred prayer and public celebration, both cultural heritage and living spirituality. Hula as a path of devotion. For many practitioners today, learning hula is a lifelong spiritual path. It requires discipline, humility, and reverence. Dancers see themselves not as performers, but as vessels for story and spirit. Through years of training, they learn not only movements but chants, rituals, and the deep philosophy behind the art. In this way, hula continues to serve as a spiritual journey, shaping character as much as skill. A bridge between worlds at its most sacred, hula bridges worlds, the human, the natural, and the divine. It reminds us that the earth is alive, that gods walk among us, and that ancestors are present in every step. For Hawaiians, this connection is not abstract. It is felt through the body, voice, and spirit in the act of dancing. For audiences, witnessing ceremonial hula offers a glimpse into hula in community life, education, family, and festivals. Hula is more than performance or spirituality. It is community. From ancient times to the present, hula has been the foundation of gatherings, the teacher of values, and the bond between generations. To understand hula in its fullest sense, we must see how it lives in families, schools, celebrations, and everyday life. Halau hula, the heart of learning at the center of community. Hula life is the halau hula or hula school. The word halau traditionally referred to a longhouse or meeting place. In the context of hula, it is both a physical space and a sacred community where knowledge is preserved and passed down. Role of the kumu hula. The kumu hula is the teacher, guide, and cultural guardian. Their responsibility is immense, for they carry genealogies of knowledge passed through generations. A kumu hula doesn't simply teach dance steps. They impart history, discipline, language, and spirituality. Haumana, students. Students in a halau are more than learners. They are family. They train together, gather materials together, and support each other in performances. The bonds formed within a halau often last a lifetime. Discipline and respect. Training is rigorous. Students are expected to respect their kumu, their fellow dancers, and the traditions they are learning. The process shapes character as much as skill. A halau hula is not just a dance school, it is a cultural sanctuary where Hawaiian values such as respect, ho'ihi, humility, ha'aha'a, and perseverance, ho'omanawanui, are instilled. Family. And hula hula has always been woven into family life. In ancient times, families would gather to chant, dance, and share stories together. Parents and grandparents passed down knowledge of songs, movements, and meanings to younger generations. Even today, many families are connected through hula. It is not uncommon for 3 generations, grandparents, parents, and children, to dance together in community performances or to belong to the same halau. Through hula, families preserve their ancestry. When a child learns a chant honoring their lineage, they are not just memorizing words, they are being connected to their ancestors. In this way, hula strengthens identity and belonging. Festivals. Hula as celebration. Hula thrives in festivals, where it brings communities together in joy and pride. These gatherings are not just entertainment, but expressions of unity and heritage. Merry Monarch Festival. The most famous celebration of hula, held annually in Hilo, is both competition and cultural showcase. It is the pinnacle event for halau hula across the world. Local festivals. Throughout Hawaii, smaller festivals and community events feature hula as the highlight, whether celebrating harvests, honoring ancestors, or marking town anniversaries. Cultural fairs and global stages, beyond Hawaii, festivals. In the mainland U.S. and abroad, bring hula to wider audiences. These events celebrate not only dance, but Hawaiian food, crafts, and music, creating holistic cultural experiences. Festivals provide an opportunity for dancers to showcase months or years of preparation while also uniting communities in collective pride. Hula. As education for children in Hawaii and Hawaiian communities abroad, hula often serves as their first introduction to cultural learning. Through dance, they absorb language, stories, and values. Learning, respect. Children are taught to bow to their kumu, respect the dance space, and approach hula with humility. Learning language. Through chants and songs, children absorb Hawaiian words and phrases, strengthening language revitalization. Learning connection. Hula teaches children to see themselves as part of a larger story, connected to the land, gods, and ancestors. Hula education is not only about performance, but about raising children to be proud of their heritage. Intergenerational. Bonds. One of the most beautiful aspects of hula is its ability to bridge generations. Elders pass knowledge to the young, who in turn carry it forward. In performances, it is not unusual to see dancers of all ages. A grandmother may perform alongside her granddaughter, their movements echoing each other across time. These shared experiences strengthen family ties and ensure cultural continuity. Intergenerational hula also reinforces the idea that learning never ends. Elders continue to refine their skills, while the young bring fresh energy and interpretation. This dynamic exchange keeps the tradition vibrant, Hula in community healing beyond celebration, hula also plays a role in healing. Community gatherings often include hula to honor loved ones who have passed, to comfort those in grief, or to bring people together after hardship. The collective act of dancing and chanting creates solidarity. In times of crisis, hula reminds communities of resilience, shared identity, and the presence of ancestors watching over them. Everyday community life hula is not limited to festivals or schools. It is woven into everyday life in Hawaii. At weddings, hula is often performed to bless the couple. At birthdays or family reunions, relatives may dance to honor elders. At community meetings or cultural events, hula may open or close gatherings with reverence. In these moments, hula is not spectacle but a living practice, grounding daily life in tradition and spirituality. Hula in the Hawaiian diaspora As Hawaiians migrated to the U.S. mainland and beyond, they carried hula with them. Communities in California, Nevada, and Washington built halau hula, preserving cultural ties far from the islands. For diaspora Hawaiians, hula is often the most direct connection to homeland. It provides belonging, identity, and cultural continuity, especially for younger generations growing up outside Hawaii. Through hula, communities abroad remain linked to their heritage, no matter the distance. The social fabric of festivals at Hawaiian festivals, hula does more than entertain. It builds community. Food vendors, craft makers, musicians, and dancers all come together, creating a holistic cultural experience. For audiences, these festivals are an immersion into Hawaiian values. For participants, they are affirmations of identity. The collective celebration strengthens bonds within communities and educates those from outside about the richness of Hawaiian life. Unity through hula. Perhaps the greatest community role of hula is unity. Whether in a halau, a family gathering, or a festival, hula brings people together. It transcends social divisions, welcoming people of different ages, backgrounds, and even ethnicities into its embrace. While rooted in Hawaiian identity, hula has also become a gift shared with others, building bridges of understanding. Hula as community legacy. Each halau, each family, and each festival contributes to a collective legacy. The dances performed today carry the voices of ancestors, ensuring they are never forgotten. Communities see themselves reflected in the steps, chants, and adornments. In this way, hula becomes both memory and hope, reminding people of who they were and who they strive to be. Conclusion. No closing yet. In community life, hula is more than art. It is education, family, healing, celebration, and connection. It nurtures children, honors elders, strengthens families, and unites communities. To witness hula in these contexts is to see it not just as if hula is the heartbeat of Hawaiian culture, then storytelling is its voice. Every sway of the hips, every sweep of the hands, every rise and fall of a chant carries a narrative. Hula is not abstract dance. It is living literature, a visual and auditory text where the body and the voice come together to tell stories. For Hawaiians, storytelling has always been central to identity. In an island world without a written alphabet until the 19th century, the past was preserved through memory, chant, and dance. Hula became one of the most powerful mediums for this oral tradition, ensuring that history, genealogy, and mythology would never fade. The body as language in hula, the body itself is the storyteller. Movements are not decorative but symbolic. Each gesture corresponds to an element of the narrative. Hands moving outward can describe waves rolling to shore. Fingers fluttering might represent rain falling on the mountains. A gentle sway of the hips evokes the wind through tall grass. A bowed head and closed arms suggest humility or grief. Through this language of movement, hula transforms stories into living images. Unlike words, which can be abstract, dance shows the story directly, embodying its emotion and rhythm. Mele. The power of chants and songs. No hula exists without mele, the chants or songs that provide narrative and rhythm. Mele are the foundation of storytelling, supplying the words, imagery, and context. There are many types of mele, each with a unique purpose. Mele mo okuauhau, genealogy chants. These recount lineages, connecting dancers to ancestors and chiefs. Mele inoa, name chants. Composed to honor individuals, often chiefs or royalty. Mele pule, prayer chants. Sacred invocations to gods or forces of nature. Mele ma'i, procreation chants. Celebrating fertility and the continuation of life. Mele mo olelo, story chants. Narratives that preserve myths, legends, and historical events. Each mele carries not only words but rhythm, tone, and emotion. Combined with movement, they transform into a full-bodied performance of storytelling. Mythology. In motion, many hula performances retell Hawaiian myths, breathing life into gods and legendary figures. Pele and Hi'iaka. Tales of Pele, the volcano goddess, and her sister Hi'iaka are among the most dramatic in hula. Dances recount Pele's fiery temper, her creation of new land, and Hi'iaka's role as healer and protector. Movements mimic lava flows, storms, and the tenderness of sibling love. Maui, the demigod who fished islands from the sea and snared the sun, appears in mele and hula, embodying themes of courage, wit, and resourcefulness. Kamapua'a, the pig god, representing fertility and rain, is portrayed with playful and sometimes humorous movements, contrasting Pele's fiery energy. Through these stories, hula keeps mythology alive, not as distant tales, but as embodied lessons relevant to everyday life. History. Preserved in Dance Beyond Mythology, hula preserves historical memory. Important battles, the reigns of chiefs, migrations, and even natural events have been remembered through mele and dance. For example, when a great storm devastated crops, a mele might be composed to describe its power, later performed in hula to teach future generations about resilience. When a chief built alliances or achieved victory, hula celebrated these accomplishments, ensuring they were remembered long after. In this way, hula is a living archive where each performance becomes a history lesson encoded in movement and song. Symbolism. Layers of meaning. Every element of hula storytelling carries symbolism. Costumes and lei. The plants chosen for adornment are never random. A dancer wearing mail may symbolize peace, while lehua blossoms may invoke Pele. Instruments. The sound of the IPU, gourd drum, may mimic heartbeats or the steady rhythm of work, while the pahu, shark skin drum, can signal sacred intensity. Chanting style. The pitch, speed, and tone of a chant reflect the emotion. Slow and low for solemn stories, fast and high for excitement or battle. Together, these layers enrich the storytelling, turning each performance into a multi-dimensional narrative. Storytelling. Across generations, one of hula's greatest strengths is its ability to pass stories from one generation to the next. When a child learns a mele and its choreography, they are not just learning a dance, they are memorizing history. They carry the story within their body, ensuring it will not be forgotten. This oral kinetic transmission has preserved Hawaiian culture through centuries of change, even during times when language and traditions were suppressed. The emotional dimension of storytelling hula does more than recount events. It conveys emotion. The sorrow of loss, the joy of union, the awe of nature, all are embedded in performance. For audiences, this emotional dimension makes hula more than history. It becomes empathy. When a dancer embodies grief, the audience feels it. When they express triumph, the audience celebrates too. This shared emotional journey is what gives hula its power as communal storytelling. Regional and stylistic variations in storytelling. Different islands and communities developed unique storytelling. Traditions in Hula. On Hawaii Island, Hula often emphasizes Pele's fiery myths. On Kauai, stories of Hi'iaka and forest deities dominate. On Oahu, genealogical chants and stories of chiefs hold special place. These variations reflect the diversity of Hawaiian experience, with each region highlighting stories most relevant to its environment and history. Storytelling in contemporary Hula modern practitioners continue to use Hula as storytelling, sometimes composing new mele to address contemporary issues. Chants have been written to honor environmental activism, reminding communities of the need to protect sacred lands. Some Hula tell the story of Hawaiian sovereignty movements, preserving political struggles through art. Others celebrate modern Hawaiian leaders or significant cultural milestones. In this way, Hula storytelling is not confined to the past. It evolves, ensuring that present-day experiences are remembered alongside ancient myths. Hula as collective memory. Hula is not just individual expression. It is collective memory. When an entire halau performs a story, they embody history together, reinforcing community bonds. This collective aspect ensures accuracy, as multiple dancers and chanters preserve the same story. It also strengthens unity, reminding communities of their shared heritage. Storytelling. Beyond words, Hula's storytelling is accessible even to those unfamiliar with Hawaiian language. While words carry meaning, the universal language of movement and emotion communicates across cultures. This explains why Hula has resonated with audiences worldwide. Even if one does not understand the words of a mele, the gestures, rhythm, and energy reveal the essence of the story. The sacred responsibility of storytelling. To tell a story through Hula is not a casual act. Dancers carry a sacred responsibility to represent the narrative accurately and respectfully. Improper performance can distort or weaken the story's power. Thus, training emphasizes precision, not for technical perfection alone, but to ensure that history and mythology are honored. The timelessness of Hula storytelling. Perhaps the greatest testament to Hula as storytelling is its timelessness. Myths. Composed centuries ago are still danced today, connecting audiences to ancestors across time. New stories are added, ensuring continuity into the future. In this way, Hula is not just about remembering, it is about living history, where past. Hula's global journey, a cultural ambassador. Beyond Hawaii, Hula was born in the islands of Hawaii, shaped by volcanic landscapes, ocean breezes, and ancestral voices. Yet, over time, it has traveled far beyond its homeland. Today, Hula is danced not only in Hawaii, but across the United States, Japan, Europe, and beyond. Its global journey is both a story of cultural resilience and a testament to its universal appeal. Hula's spread across the world reflects migration, cultural exchange, and the desire for people everywhere to connect with beauty, rhythm, and meaning. In its journey, Hula has become more than a Hawaiian tradition. It has become a bridge between cultures, Hawaiian migration, and the diaspora. The first wave of Hula's expansion beyond Hawaii occurred through migration. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, many Hawaiians moved to the U.S. mainland for work, education, or military service. Later, the Hawaiian diaspora spread even further, with families settling in California, Nevada, and Washington. Wherever Hawaiians went, they carried Hula. Small community gatherings often featured performances, keeping traditions alive far from the islands. These gatherings became cultural anchors for Hawaiians abroad, helping maintain identity and community in unfamiliar places. Hula on the mainland United States. By the mid-20th century, Hula began to gain visibility across the U.S. tourism influence. As Hawaii became a popular tourist destination after statehood in 1959, many mainland Americans experienced Hula for the first time. Resorts and hotels featured hula shows, which sparked curiosity beyond the islands. Community groups, Hawaiian clubs, and halau hula were established in cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Las Vegas, and Seattle. These groups taught hula to second- and third-generation Hawaiians who grew up away from the islands. Cultural ambassadors, performances at fairs, parades, and cultural events introduced hula to broader American audiences. Over time, hula became a symbol of Hawaii in the American imagination, sometimes simplified but increasingly appreciated as a serious cultural practice. Hula in Japan. One of the most remarkable chapters in hula's global journey is its popularity in Japan. Today, Japan has thousands of hula schools, more than even Hawaii itself. Post-war connection. In the aftermath of World War II, Japan looked outward for cultural inspiration. Hawaii, with its ties to the U.S. and its Pacific identity, became a source of fascination. Tourism and media. Japanese tourists visiting Hawaii often experienced hula, sparking a deep cultural interest. Media coverage, including films and travel programs, amplified this curiosity. Adoption and dedication. Japanese practitioners embraced hula with remarkable dedication. Many study Hawaiian language, travel to Hawaii for festivals like Merry Monarch, and maintain strict training under Hawaiian kumu hula. While some performances in Japan emphasize the joyful, entertainment aspects of hula, many halau cultivate deep cultural respect, ensuring authenticity. This balance of adaptation and preservation has allowed hula to flourish in Japanese culture while still honoring its Hawaiian roots. Hula in Europe. Europe has also become home to growing hula communities, particularly in Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. Cultural festivals. Hawaiian-themed festivals in Europe often feature hula performances, drawing large audiences. Halau abroad. Kumu hula from Hawaii frequently travel to Europe to teach workshops, establishing a direct link between continents. Cross-cultural exchange. European audiences often connect with hula through its emphasis on storytelling and nature, resonating with their own folk traditions. Though smaller in scale compared to Japan, Europe's hula communities are passionate and expanding, adding to the dance's global reach. Hula as a cultural ambassador. Wherever it travels, hula serves as a cultural ambassador for Hawaii. It introduces people to Hawaiian values, language, and worldview. Respect for nature. Audiences learn that hula movements mirror wind, waves, and rain, teaching reverence for the environment. Community and family. Through performances, people experience the sense of unity and togetherness central to Hawaiian culture. Spiritual dimension. Even outside Hawaii, the sacred quality of hula resonates, reminding audiences of the importance of ritual and connection. In this way, hula not only entertains but educates, fostering cultural understanding and respect. Challenges. Of global spread. Hula's global popularity also raises challenges. Cultural misrepresentation. Tourist shows or casual performances sometimes simplify hula, presenting it as exotic entertainment without context. Commercialization. In some cases, hula has been commodified, stripped of its sacred and cultural depth. Authenticity concerns. Practitioners abroad may lack direct connection to Hawaiian traditions, risking dilution of meaning. These challenges highlight the importance of kumu hula and Hawaiian cultural leaders, who work tirelessly to ensure that hula remains authentic and respectful. Kumu hula abroad. Many kumu hula travel extensively, teaching workshops in the mainland U.S., Japan, and Europe. Some have established permanent halau abroad, ensuring that students receive direct guidance from cultural authorities. Through this global mentorship, hula maintains continuity. Students abroad learn not only steps but chants, rituals, and the cultural philosophy that underpins the dance. Hula festivals worldwide beyond Hawaii. International festivals celebrate hula's global family. Japan's hula competitions, annual. Competitions attract thousands of dancers with categories for both traditional and modern hula. U.S. mainland festivals, cities with large Hawaiian communities host cultural gatherings where hula is central. Europe's hula gatherings. Smaller but growing festivals in Europe highlight cross-cultural appreciation of Hawaiian traditions. These festivals create opportunities for cultural exchange, with Hawaiians traveling abroad and international dancers visiting Hawaii hula as a global language. While hula is deeply Hawaiian, it has also become a kind of global language. Its themes, love, nature, family, spirituality, are universal. Audiences in Tokyo, Paris, or New York may not understand every Hawaiian word, but they connect with the gestures of rain, the swaying of trees, or the rhythm of the ocean. This universality allows hula to resonate across cultures, transcending boundaries. Preservation. Through expansion. Paradoxically, hula's global spread has helped preserve it. At times when Hawaiian traditions were suppressed in their homeland, interest abroad provided support and visibility. Today, the global hula community strengthens Hawaiian identity by honoring its traditions worldwide. Far from diluting the art, global interest has often amplified appreciation for authenticity, encouraging deeper study of Hawaiian culture. Hula and cross-cultural inspiration. In its global journey, hula has also inspired creative cross-cultural exchanges. Musicians from other traditions have collaborated with Hawaiian chanters. Dancers abroad sometimes blend hula with local traditions, creating respectful fusions. Scholars from around the world have studied hula, contributing to cultural preservation efforts. These exchanges enrich both Hawaiian culture and the cultures that embrace hula, creating a dialogue across oceans. Hula's role in Hawaiian pride. Abroad, for Hawaiians living outside the islands, hula is often the strongest expression of cultural pride. Dancing or teaching hula allows them to stay connected to their heritage, even in distant lands. It also educates non-Hawaiians, fostering understanding of Hawaiian struggles, resilience, and worldview. In this way, hula becomes both personal expression and cultural diplomacy. Looking ahead. The future of global hula is. Hula continues to grow globally. Its future will depend on balance between accessibility and authenticity, adaptation and preservation. Hula's enduring legacy, heritage, spirit, and the rhythm of life. From its sacred beginnings in the Hawaiian Islands to its presence on global stages, hula has always been more than dance. It is prayer, history, education, and celebration. It is the heartbeat of a people and the expression of a worldview that sees all things, land, ocean, gods, and humanity, as interconnected. In this final chapter, we bring together the many dimensions explored. Hula as spirituality, as storytelling, as community, and as cultural ambassador. More than a tradition, hula is a living legacy that continues to guide, inspire, and unite. Hula as a vessel of memory. At its essence, hula is memory made visible. Every gesture carries echoes of ancestors. Every chant speaks with the voices of generations. Without hula, many stories of Hawaii might have faded. Instead, they remain embodied in the rhythms of dance. For Hawaiians, remembering is not passive, it is active. To perform hula is to bring history into the present, to ensure that heritage is not confined to books or museums, but lived in movement, voice, and spirit. The interweaving of sacred and secular. Throughout this journey, we have seen how hula embraces both sacred ceremony and joyous celebration. In the temple, it is prayer. On the festival stage, it is community celebration. In the family, it is continuity across generations. This ability to hold both the sacred and the secular makes hula unique. It can inspire reverence and laughter, healing and joy, all depending on the context and intention of the dance. The voice of the land hula also reminds us of the inseparable bond between humans and the natural world. Mountains, rivers, winds, and flowers are not mere scenery, but participants in the story. A dancer's body becomes the ocean, the rain, the blossoms swaying in the wind. In an age of environmental concern, hula's reverence for nature offers lessons beyond Hawaii. It calls us all to recognize the sacredness of land and water, urging care and respect. Education. Through Rhythm Hula continues to serve as one of Hawaii's most powerful educational tools. In Halau Hula, students learn language, history, discipline, and values. Outside Hawaii, hula teaches cultural respect and awareness. Unlike traditional classrooms, hula educates through rhythm, song, and embodiment. It teaches not only what to know, but how to live, with humility, respect, and connection. Healing. Through dance. The healing power of hula resonates in every community where it is practiced. It brings comfort in times of grief, strength in hardship, and unity in division. The simple act of moving together, chanting together, reconnects people to each other and to the sacred. For many, dancing hula is a form of therapy, releasing stress, restoring balance, and nurturing joy. In this way, hula continues its ancient role as a healer, bridging body, mind, and spirit. Global bridges, local roots, as explored in its global journey, hula now thrives across the world. From Tokyo to Paris, from Las Vegas to Berlin, people dance hula with passion and respect. Yet, no matter how far it travels, hula remains rooted in Hawaii. Its language, chants, and spiritual essence are bound to the islands. This dual identity, local and global, ensures both preservation and expansion, allowing hula to flourish without losing its soul. Challenges and responsibilities. With popularity comes responsibility. Practitioners and audiences alike must recognize hula not simply as performance but as cultural heritage. Misrepresentation, commercialization, and oversimplification threaten its depth. That is why the role of kumu hula is vital. They safeguard authenticity, ensuring that students abroad and at home learn the deeper meanings, not just the outward forms. Their work keeps hula alive in its full richness. Hula, as living heritage, UNESCO defines intangible cultural heritage as practices, knowledge, and skills that communities recognize as part of their identity. By this definition, hula is not just heritage. It is one of the most vibrant examples of living heritage in the modern world. It continues to evolve, adapting to new contexts while remaining faithful to its foundations. Each new generation of dancers adds their breath to an unbroken chain stretching back to the ancestors. The emotional resonance of hula to witness hula is to feel something beyond words. The steady beat of the drum, the power of the chant, the grace of the hands all create a shared emotional experience. For Hawaiians, this resonance is identity. For non-Hawaiians, it is connection. Hula reminds us of universal truths, that we are part of nature, that we belong to communities, and that stories give life meaning. Hula in the future. As we look to the future, hula will continue to adapt and expand. New mele will be written to honor modern experiences, environmental struggles, cultural revitalization, and community resilience. Technology may bring hula to digital platforms, connecting global audiences in ways once unimaginable. Yet its essence will remain unchanged. Whether danced in a sacred temple, a family gathering, or a global festival, hula will always be prayer, story, and heritage in motion. A gift to the world. Ultimately, hula is Hawaii's gift to the world. It is an invitation to slow down, to listen to the rhythms of nature, to honor ancestors, and to move with grace. But it is also more than a gift. It is a responsibility. For those who practice, it demands respect. For those who witness, it asks for openness. For communities everywhere, It offers a model of how art can carry culture, spirituality, and identity across generations. Closing reflection. As we conclude this exploration, we return to the image of hula as the heartbeat of Hawaii. With every beat of the drum, every step of the dancer, every chant rising to the heavens, the heartbeat continues, steady, resilient, alive. Hula endures not because it resists change, but because it embraces it with grace, weaving the past into the present, the sacred into the everyday, the local into the global. It reminds us that culture is not a relic but a living, breathing force. And as long as dancers rise to honor the gods, the land, and the ancestors, hula will never fade. Hula